and I am having chaos here. And welcome to Powered by Intuition. This is a near weekly live where I share things that I intuit or pick up and share knowledge. I might use current events, but the knowledge that is shared here is priceless. It is timeless. It is something that if you are watching this now, you may connect with it, you may resonate with it. The whole concept of this is to have you discover this at a time when you need it most. So once again, even though I use current events, the wisdom is timeless. So don't let that whole date and time thing mess you up. So welcome. It has been a while since I hopped on, hence the near weekly. It's been a lot. There's been a lot going on. Last time I did share that, there's some legal stuff happening, and that stuff happens. So getting that thing moving forward, supporting a friend and ensuring that he is getting the best care necessary. And that has kind of been my goal as of late. So focused on that, focused on work stuff. Work has been unending. It picks up a lot. And then sometimes I get little glimpses of breaks. I work 7 days a week. So when you are in business, sole proprietor, when you do that, you get to set your schedule, and it's like 24/7, meaning you're working 24/7. It never stops. And I keep getting more clients, and I'm like, I cannot, I'm at capacity. I need some lifetime where I can do things like clean up, like repair my table that is all tilty right now, which I am balancing things on, hence the chaos at the beginning. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's a blessing. And this is testament to relying on skills, because the skills that I'm relying on right now are skills that I developed way back in the day, like, oh God, chaos. I have my little phone set up here, but it is not playing nice. So starting from 14 to about 17-ish, I was going to go into animal training for productions. That was going to be my thing. So I was building and developing skills throughout that time to do this, like 100% all in. I have 2 animal husbandry certificates, like worked in a variety of capacities in that market to make this happen. And my goodness, this stuff is being so cheeky. And then at that point, because I'm old, I noticed, I was like, hey, CGI is getting pretty darn good. CGI is getting really good right now. This is not a good idea of an industry to go into. So hard pivot, and then I went into the entertainment industry myself, and that has come full circle to where I'm relying on that stuff again to have consistent work. But now the industry is picking up, so we'll see what happens there, because I'm always 1 foot in. What else did I want to cover on that? The point is for a lot of people, especially young people that are looking for work right now, it is there, it is available, but you might not be using the skills that you developed in something, say, like college. Did I go to college? I went to college for about a year, and that's how I learned introductions into legal stuff. Tried some other things, did a little bit of film, and I got a good groundwork of experience to where it's like stuff went down, didn't work out. And it just set me on a different trajectory that ended up being much better for me. Let's just say that. So within the scope of things, like I've learned and picked up these little different traits and tactics and techniques of doing things. And all of this has served me throughout my life. All of it. So let's say I don't have work, I'll bounce on to Poshmark, and I'll start listing stuff. I have an unending pile of things that I need to list on Poshmark. So, a good couple hundred. And I have tons of materials. So many materials, if you only knew. And I can just start making things and then list and make and list and list and, take it to the post office. And the way that Poshmark works is that you don't have the upfront fees. So it's like very strategic. It's looking at the situation and going, well, what can I do with what I have here and now? What can I focus on? Like if I didn't have work, I would, be going live on Poshmark. I'd be going live here on TikTok. I would be, constantly on nonstop to make ends meet. There are options for you. So it's just figuring out what is best for you to make these things happen. And then the next step is actually taking the steps to do it and make it happen. As I deal with a younger person in my life that is my child, it's hard for them to take those initial steps and to figure out a way to, even with AI and internet, it's weird for me, but there's still like that impasse on taking that first step. And that's, something that gets worked through with a therapist, with specific people. And it's happening. I mean, they're doing great. So, but there's a lot of jumping to different subjects. There's just some interesting concepts that keep showing up. And I really want to kind of unravel this a little bit. And some of this might deal around trigger warnings and those sorts of things. But this centers on integrity and being in integrity. So one of my other skill sets, being a coach, which I started developing an understanding of human nature, looking at animal behavior and animal nature, and then expedited that to, how humans behave and proceeding with that. So the thing that I differentiate as a coach is understanding behavior, which a lot of coaches do to an extent. And then how do we navigate these things called behavior? How do I dial people in to understanding behavior when a lot of people are trained to not understand behavior? So I could be like, hey, I'm pointing out this behavior and this behavior is problematic. And they'll be like, I can't believe you said that, because let's take COVID, for example, because, let me unpack this first. Let me start at point one. This is where I get mixed up, because I'll tell the story, I'll start in the middle, and then I'll be like, hold on, let's back up. So I'm going to use COVID as an example, and I'm going to use this example of like, everybody needs to mask. And if you don't mask, you're the a-hole, and, you're problematic, and you're a terrible person, and everybody has to do this. Everyone has to protect that vulnerable person. Everybody has to protect that vulnerable person. And it's like, yes, and you're not going to control everybody. That's fascism. That's authoritarianism. That behavior correlates to fascist behaviors of you have to, my way or the highway, not so good things, because now we're experiencing the backlash of that, right? We're experiencing that rubber band effect where, just kind of hits you. The ricochet. And then since it's been so extreme, it's going to cycle back. But it's still going to be on that plane, that line of authoritarianism or fascism. So it's like we're going like this instead of going, why don't we just get out of here and not play this game and go into three-dimensional understanding and logic that we can do things different. Right? Are we capable of that? Absolutely. That is how we exist in nature at the moment. Because if we didn't do things different, we would just be animals. We have the power and ability to do things different and to understand that these behaviors are not necessarily the best. But what we can do is we can do the best for ourselves. We can manage things ourselves. As crappy and as frustrating as it is, and as hard as it is, we have to do our best to protect ourselves. And then we can do our best to intercede with others. But we have to let go of that expectation that we can control them. Hello, mass surveillance. This is all interconnected, and people don't seem to understand that. Which is, it's challenging to convey that understanding because it comes from a point of behavior. And people are taught to ignore and not look at and not understand behavior, but just look at words or consider words, but not everything else that's underneath it, which is the behavior. So it's like, yes, we want to care about our neighbors. Yes, it would be great for people to care about others. But I personally, dealing with people that have narcissistic tendencies, have had to let go of that because I can't control them. And it was driving me nuts. It was a waste of my energy. It was an expense of my time. They don't deserve anything from me, let alone my emotional energy. But when we are like this, that's what we create. We create this hostility, this charge of frustration of like, well, you should be taking care of them and, blah, 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 blah. And you should be mindful of me and my needs. We can only do our best. It's like, yeah, it sucks that people smoke, that, I personally have to deal with secondhand smoke. Fortunately, it's brief and I get out of the area. But what are you going to do if you can't? If laws weren't passed where, no more smoking indoors. So there is this dichotomy of like, yes, we can work towards making things better, but we can only do our best in that. We cannot sit here and force, coerce, or whatnot others. Like, we get to do our best to protect ourselves. And that is something that was missing, that personal empowerment. And that is by design. I'm going to say that again. And the one thing that I noticed that was missing during COVID is the personal empowerment. And that is by design. The more you are caught up in trying to control each other, the more authoritarianism, the more fascism, the more we have this ricochet effect, this backlash. We can, as human beings, we can only handle so much. And it's like, it sucks that I want to empathize with someone that might be smoking, but I know sometimes for people that is a way of stress release. That is a way of being in community. I don't think it's a good thing at all. And it doesn't just affect them, but I cannot control them. I can share, hey, my grandmother died from emphysema and lung cancer, and I care about you. Maybe there's something else you can replace that with. Maybe there's something better we can do. Maybe it's passing the proximity laws from the building that, we have in Los Angeles, or the no smoking inside, which is great. But there's still people that do it regardless, right? So, like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, you need to, at some point, I have to let go for my mental health. And I think I learned that with wanting or having the expectation of what a mom should look like, and then having a mom that is anything but nurturing. And that was very hard. And then I let go. And dealing with another family member who's like, did you know your mom did this? And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. She's living her life. I don't have any stake in that. If she were here and I could support her, like if she was nearby, sure, I would do that. 100% would step up. But she's not. She chose to go elsewhere with another family member, and okay, they get to handle it. They're in proximity. They have the ability to do something. I can't do ish out here. And I'm not going to be all up in her business. I'm not going to be. Why should I expend energy on someone that hasn't really, like, created that bond? I don't need to. And sure, that sounds really crappy. That sounds really, I want to say the S word on my part. But I can only handle what I handle, and I have enough that I'm dealing with in my life to be consistent, to make ends meet. Like, I'm working my ass off, and I'm fine with that. So I support those who are around me that I can support, that I am blessed. Oh gosh. All right, I'm just gonna turn this off because nobody's watching anyways. Good Lord. Anyways, so it's like my blessings overflow and I can support others. But I can only do so much. Like, I have no family in the Middle East. I need to check in with friends that I know are in the military right now and see that they're okay. But other than that, it's like, I don't have any opinion on this stuff. I'm going to be there to support people who need to vent. Genocide, yeah, it's bad. It's happening all over the world. There is horrific things happening in Africa. And are people talking about? No. I'm not going to be one-sided about it. I'm going to handle what I can handle. I'm going to do what I can do. But right now, I need to support my own here, because I cannot expend that energy that is absolutely futile, because I can't do anything to impact over there. I don't have those connections right now, and I'm not going to search for those connections. Even if I had them, like, I don't know at the moment. I might have connections. I really don't know. I do not have the time to do that. I have things that I need to do here. And that's kind of like me minding my own gosh darn business. I don't need to be in everybody's business. I need to be living my life and focused on the things that I can handle and control. It's like the what is it? I think AA does the prayer, but it's that serenity prayer. It's letting go of what you can't control. And then realizing the only thing that you can really control or get to begin to control is yourself. And I don't even really like to call it control. I like to call it self mastery. This is where you understand who you are, how you behave, under what conditions are you behaving in a certain way, and can you manage that to the best of your abilities? Because you really, there are some things that seem to be fixed, but really it's just managing it because those impulses, those old things will kind of like tug at you at times, not 100%, not all the time. Oftentimes it's not completely gone. Sometimes it masks or sometimes it's changed into something else. But it's all about getting yourself to manage your dark side, your shadow side, these parts of you that you don't feel are supporting your best interests or supporting the best interests of those around you. You begin to have and grow and create that awareness so that you can manage these things. Like a manager in a business, right? Sometimes they suck. And when we're starting, it's going to suck. Sometimes we swing that pendulum into the most adverse way before we find our balance. We're tipping forward before we can stand up. So that's why I use the word we manage, we master. And that's why I prefer the term self-mastery, which is an aspect or an act, self-control. And one of these ways, like the beginning premise, is being in aligned with your values. And values are different from a moral set that, like, let's say, religion puts upon you. Yes, there are things that are ubiquitous across humanity as big no-nos. It's like basically the first few, or first few, I don't know the order, the 10 Commandments, but basically, like, the 10 Commandments covers a lot of it. Like, thou shalt not covet or steal from your friend. Like, that's messed up. You steal from someone, they're not going to be happy about it. They're not going to be happy about it. If you unalive someone, their family is not going to be happy about it. If there isn't an agreement in place, like war. Kitties are being very loud because they are being fed. What? Not right now. I'm on my live right now. Why are you trying to?
This is the pancake and the swarm is right
now. I'm in a live. Good Lord. I have pancake. This is why they're meowing, by the way. I'm not gonna eat a pancake while I'm doing this, but I'll wrap up soon. That was very rude. I don't like being disrupted on this, which is why I usually lock the door to prevent the incursions. You know, it's all about, once again, cycling back from the beginning. Like, you know, you have to do things that you know will protect your peace, regardless of how another person might feel. You know, do your best to communicate that. But yeah, one of the ways I set boundaries is like by locking the door so I don't receive wild pancakes. Okay. So let's come back to where it was at, where, you know, values are different from a moral system. Values are something where you run checks and balances on yourself, and then you also match that with the outer world. So it's like if you're expecting someone to be more, let's say, if you're expecting someone to be more in integrity than you yourself are, and you're not taking into account into how often you're in integrity, you're actually going to be out of integrity. Because like your expectations on someone else does not match the expectations that you place on yourself. And that's really messed up, which is why having self-mastery is part of that, because that is self-awareness. If you're not aware of yourself, you're going to like create these problems and these dynamics that don't really work. And so like I see a lot of people shocked that, oh my gosh, this person did this. And it's like, hold up, let me think about this. Is this something that I would do or even have an inkling of doing had I that person's life? Probably, probably. So I can't sit here being like all high and mighty about it. I understand that we're on our journey, but there are absolutely things that are absolutely unacceptable that I would never want to do. And then like responses get to be applicable to that situation. I feel like I've kind of like not correlated or communicated this right. So let me kind of draw back a little bit, but your value system are your checks and balances for your internal reasoning. And it's like you got to keep running these checks and balances of like, am I in alignment with these values that I've stipulated? So someone might have, I brought up the value of integrity. That's kind of one of my values where like I like to be in integrity, but there are times when I'm not. And that means I need to look at that. That means I need to understand that. And I need to do corrections based on that. And then with the corrections, it's communicating with that person. Well, what's applicable to making amends in this state? Because if it's dealing with another person, I can't go, well, I'm going to do this and boop, we're making amends. Like they have to have an agreement of that. If they don't, it's not going to work. So we have to really consider what we do, because being in integrity is also like I would want someone to ask me, hey, if they've messed up in something, like how can I make it up to you? How can I make it better? Because my answers might not be the same as someone else who's just like, you know what, it's fine. Like I totally fine with that, just don't let it happen again, that's cool. My answer might be like, well, I would like to see more of this. And either they're going to agree to that or they're going to be like, not going to happen. And that's fine. We can not partner or not work together again, right? We each have our own directives on that. And I'm not going to sit there for I'm not going to keep myself in a space where I know that I'm not values aligned with my top 5 values. Like, let's be reasonable, right? And so it's like, if there's a values impasse, meaning if the values are not aligned and it's one of my top 5 values, and it becomes a big issue, then I need to walk away. There's no point in fighting. There's no point in cattiness. There's no point in me expending that emotional energy in a space where that person is never going to change and they have the right to not be changed. I don't need to force or coerce them. I got my own stuff to deal with. We all have our choices. We have that free will. And so that's part of that where I want to honor that autonomy. And I think a lot of people want that honored as well. Some people don't. Some people want to be told what to do, and that's fine. That's up to them to decide. But I'm not going to force, coerce, or even manipulate. And I see it all so much that people are forced, coerced, and manipulated. And when you don't have that self mastery to really sit down and go, is this really something I want? Is there something for me? And really kind of like weigh that against your value system to see if it's aligned, then you get yourself into problems. So, it's like there's another interesting thing that I'm coming up with, and this one's on the weird side, where it's like, I used to deliver for Postmates, and there's been dudes who, just are chilling at home and not wearing t-shirts or whatnot, and it's like, one I felt offended by, the other I was like, no, you can do this all the time. And the only difference was how much weight they had. And when I reflected on that, I was like, you know what? That's messed up. That's really messed up. One guy was heavy and the other one was slender, muscular. And when I really sat with that, it was like, this isn't right. This isn't a right way to be. This isn't a good thing. Like, I can appreciate the human body in whatever form it's in. And yes, I want to encourage people to be healthier. But I've also had to make amends with my own body when I was heavy set, right? I'm not going to hold that against someone else when I've been there myself. There's no point to that. And then I was like, well, what's the difference? They're within their right to not be wearing shirts. What's the difference? Oh, one has pretty privilege. That's messed up. That's messed up. So I had to let go and be like, I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to be that person that's like, well, it's okay if this person does it, but it's not okay if that person does it. That's not cool. Like, they both have a right to not wear t-shirts. What the heck was wrong with me, right? It was kind of like what I was thinking. I was like, similar experiences, but one I felt offended by, and the other I didn't. And that's the only difference. Nonsensical. Not okay. And so I got to work through that. I got to really consider it, and I got to look at it and be like, you know what? I don't need to be this way. I don't. And so I shifted that within myself because I had that awareness to be like, the only difference is fat? Come on now. That's ridiculous. And I've been the fat kid. And so, if there's one thing that I leave with you tonight, is to really consider your values, consider these situations and things, and really begin to think about them in a different way. Really begin to consider, like, okay, I've messed up like that too. What is a way that we can repair this so that we can move forward? And there's one thing I'm going to leave with you all right now. And this is an American paradigm. So if you're watching from a different country, I mean, you probably already noticed this. Americans hesitate to call themselves Americans. And this has been like a recent revelation for me on the subject of I am every aspect of America. Indigenous, Black, European, probably a little Asian in there, unverified, but like the trifecta of America. And we're at the point in this country where there shouldn't be those divisions of like, oh, we're black, white, Asian, whatever, Hispanic. And it's like, this is stupid. We're all American. When do we get to be just Americans instead of these little niches of America? It's so weird that we all do this. Can't just be like, hey, I'm a Statesian from the United States. Because even being like, I'm American, is kind of weird because America is the name of the continent, which encapsulates a lot of many different cultures and peoples and countries. But, you know, it's coming back to this. It's like, when do we get to unify and recognize each other in unity? And some parts of it, yeah, I feel like it's by design. The more we're divided, the easier we are to control. Because as I said earlier, a lot of people aren't taught to look at behaviors. And when you don't understand behaviors, you're not going to understand the correlation between someone just asking or, you know, trying to force people to wear a mask over being like, hey, I'm going to be very proactive in my health. I'm going to do what I can to protect myself because I know I'm not going to control every single person out there. I can ask, I can put it out there. I can be like, hey, please wear a mask. This can help save people, but I'm going to understand that not everybody's going to do that, and it's not my job to force them. But I can protect myself, and that was the one thing that was missing from that. Not any major people were sharing how to boost your immune system, how to protect yourself besides mask. But I saw that train coming down the tracks, and I was like, yo, we need to boost up on vitamin C. We're going to be proactive in this, ensuring that we're taking these vitamins at this point in time where something serious is happening. You know what? It worked. We're in public transportation during that time. I had a roommate who got COVID and didn't get sick. But if you're spending so much time caring about what someone else is doing and trying to control them, you're not caring enough about yourself and protecting yourself and your own wellness and doing the research to ensuring that you are doing the best you can with what you can actually control. That is what empowerment is. But as long as we're not questioning or researching or, you know, doing the best we can to manage ourselves and our household, there will be problems and bigger problems coming down the pipeline. Because there are going to be more crazy things happening. But all I can say is the Resilience Journal is available. I will always plug that. You can go down into the description and it should be linked there, hopefully. And I do have a question. If you could comment, I would love to. What is going on? I would love to hear your comments on this. But what helps you to complete your journals? Would it be like coaching? Would it be like a daily message via text or something? Let me know in the comments, and I would love to hear from you on that. But other than that, I wish you a good night. And hopefully I'll be on next week because the last couple of weeks were like, and I'm going to be on. And I keep moving the time back and I'm like, no, it's 10 p.m. There's no way I'm doing this at 10 p.m. But I hope you got a lot out of this. And if there is some information that you would like to share with others, I would love for you to share it with those who may need this. So once again, have a good night, and I will see you next week on Powered by Intuition. Bye.